How's it going, New York Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today, we want to take a look at it and maybe an underrated pass rusher, a guy who could take a step forward, or maybe he won't make any impact at all. Anthony and I want to have a little debate about this one and see what we can figure out about Elerson Smith, fourth-round draft pick from 2021. Interesting player coming in, really lacks that functional strength you want to seal the edge in the run game, but added 10 pounds of muscle mass this past offseason. Kind of want to discuss how Wink Martindale could utilize a player like him. I think he could have some value on this defense, considering the scheme change and that they really rely on speed. So there is, I think, an opportunity for him to carve out. It's going to be tough for him, but I kind of want to have a little conversation with Anthony here about Elerson Smith and what he might be able to accomplish in this Giants defense. Before we do, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, and Elerson Smith is a player that a lot of Giants fans were kind of excited by last year when he was drafted in the fourth round. And personally, I just wasn't one of those fans. I wasn't really too crazy about the pick. I understand he's got a lot of those physical traits that make a player really special. He's like 6'7". He's a really lanky, tall tree of a man. But personally, especially now looking at the state of the Giants roster, I don't see an avenue for him to get real playing time on an NFL defense. I think that, he came from a very small school and he wasn't a super talented player by any means in terms of his skill set. I love the physical tools, but I'm excited to talk about him with you, Alex, because personally, the way that I look at it, the Giants have somewhat of a crowded room at edge rusher, and I don't see the avenue for Elerson Smith to actually get onto the field.
Yeah, that's a reasonable argument to make, right? So Elerson Smith is interesting. It's like you said, he's like 6'6", 6'7", 260 pounds. So, you look at Azeez Ojulari, he's 6'3", 240. He actually added a bunch of mass since that original weight when he was drafted. So he's probably about 250, 255, and 6'3". So he's 3 inches shorter than Elerson Smith, but he's around the same weight. So I think that should tell you all you need to know, that like Elerson is a lanky, he's long. However, he's a superior athlete. He is an athletic son of a gun, man. He is 9.87 in the relative athletic score. He ranked 18th out of 1,333 defensive ends since 1987 when they started tracking the athletic score of these players. So that's pretty damn impressive just from an athletic standpoint. You can work with that. You can work with athleticism. He's a good dude. He's coming from Northern Iowa. He has experience at the NFL level with 1 year experience. He made 8 appearances last year. Only had like 8 tackles. He had a forced fumble and 2 quarterback hits, but he does have some decent reps in the run game. He actually has decent IQ. The problem is, like, I don't trust him just yet as a tackler in the run game because he missed a couple tackles last year in limited snaps. And, the Giants tried to utilize him primarily as a passing down pass rusher. So how can he get involved in Wink Martindale's scheme? Well, it's going to be very scheme specific and situational playing time for Elerson Smith. Of course, you got guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Oshane Ximines. You also have Quincy Roche, Jaheed Ward. There's tons of guys on this roster that will probably get playing time over Elerson Smith, but I could see them if they're using some sort of like NASCAR package or like some interesting schematic where like they can utilize a guy with speed off the edge. I think that he's primarily going to be a third and long pass rusher for this Giants team. Like in addition, like they could put him at like a weak side linebacker spot and just let him blitz, right? Like be like, you're stand right here and just blitz every down. Like Wink Martindale's defense is kind of like interesting because he's blitzing. It's just a matter of where he's blitzing from. So I think Elerson Smith with that like blitz heavy mindset, he doesn't have all the strength in the world. He can win those 1v1 battles against offensive tackles and guards because of his speed and agility. I think there is value there. I think there is some sort of impact he can make moving forward. It's just a matter of like how they use him to make sure he's not a liability in the rest of the defense. So I will say this, Anthony, like to kind of aid to your argument in the sense that he might not be that impactful. I do think that like Wink Martindale's defense is very reliant on those edge setters to also play a lot of good run defense, right? The run being an all-out blitz, you have to stop running backs at the line of scrimmage, right? Of course, you have your Blake Martinez. You guys, we draft a couple linebackers, Darian Beavers and Micah McFadden, but like you need those linebackers there to like really stop, especially those outside linebackers. You need them to seal the edge. You cannot let those running backs get past that level at all times. So I think that Elerson Smith is going to see his playing time essentially be cut because of that situation in general. Now, I think third downs is where I'd like to see him on the field because he can make an impact as a blitzer and a pass rusher on like third and longs because he's so fast. He can get to the quarterback quickly. How do you think that, Elerson Smith can make an impact or maybe rather not make an impact at all?
Yeah, the reasons that I think he won't make an impact, and I do think there are ways that he does make an impact, so I'll get into those in a second. But the reasons that I think he won't make an impact, you kind of mentioned it. Being an edge setter in the running game, he does not have that ability in my eyes. He's very skinny and he's not very strong. In fact, his biggest weakness by far in his game is his lack of power and strength at the line of scrimmage. He's not going to be able to set the edge. I think any right tackle, a good right tackle, could probably bulldoze through Elerson Smith. Yes, he's very tall and he's very lanky. So if he's able to pass rush, maybe he can use that to get around people, fight them off with his long arms. That's always an advantage that an edge rusher has when they have long arms, right? You can kind of club and kind of do one of those dead arms, real stiff arm right to the chest. And it's really hard for a tackle to clinch onto an edge rusher with such long arms, especially if they combine those long arms with some good speed. But in the running game, not a lot of strength. The long arms kind of are a disadvantage there because as soon as he engages, he doesn't really have the strength to bench press anybody. You want to be bench pressing offensive linemen if you're a good edge setting edge rusher, and he doesn't really have that ability. So I think that he kind of will get tormented in the running game if we see him out there on the field. And also, another thing is look at how crowded this room is. You're talking about, of course, Kayvon Thibodeau is one of your primary edge rushers alongside Azeez Ojulari. After that, you're talking about O'Shane Ximenez, Ryan Anderson, Nico Lalos, Quincy Roach. Jihad Ward has the ability to move inside and outside as well. And there's a couple other guys that I haven't heard of with Jalen Holmes and Tom and Fox who are also on the roster. I'm just looking at the roster right now, but there's a few names there. Quincy Roach, especially Nico Lalos as well. He's always been a solid contributor in practices. And O'Shane Ximenez, of course, if he's not cut by training camp, I think all of these guys are ahead of Elerson Smith on the depth chart, and I don't see an avenue unless there's just a slew of injuries for Elerson Smith to actually see the field on defense. But if you notice, I keep saying I don't see him playing on defense. That's because I see a lot of value with Elerson Smith on special teams. That was always where I really liked Elerson Smith. Even when the Giants drafted him, I thought that he was an excellent man to put in front of the center on the field goals because he's got such long arms. He blocked 2 kicks in his collegiate career. Blocked kicks in college are an absolute rarity. They're rare enough in the NFL. Imagine how rare they are in college. They're even more rare. So Elerson Smith blocking 2 field goals in his collegiate career is definitely an impressive feat. And I think that is his avenue to making an impact with the Giants, playing on the field goal special teams and kind of just being one of those guys that can get those long arms up there, a la JPP in 2011 versus the Cowboys type of deal. Try and block some kicks and make an impact there. That's where I like Elerson Smith. I don't think it's tremendous value that he provides to the Giants, but I think that's a very niche role that he could fulfill, and I'd like to see him get on the field in that capacity. Of course, he was injured last year. We didn't see much of him, but if we would have seen him, I think that's the exact role that he would have been playing.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty fair argument. I do think with that huge wingspan, you make a pretty solid argument that he should be playing on the special teams kick unit. I mean, they had like Dexter Lawrence last year there, kind of like plugging that A gap, and he had that offsides call against Washington where they missed the kick and they made it after, so that was a huge thing. I mean, ultimately, like we were not good anyway, so I'll take the draft pick, I guess. Ended up with Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, so like. Sure,
we'll
whatever.
Take Kayvon Thibodeau out of that. That's okay.
Like, it hopefully was worth the pain because last year was just like the most pain I've ever had as a Giants fan watching us kneel. I don't even want to rehash it. It's just I'm trying to forget it. I've already done my therapy sessions for it. Like my therapist already knows all about the Giants and how bad they were last year. But now moving forward, hopefully we can have a little bit more positivity. And I hope that this team can move forward and hopefully like they can get a lot of value out of guys like Elerson Smith. There's some like young players on this team that have talent. Like when you have guys that are superior athletes like Smith, there has to be some way you can utilize them, whether it's special teams, whether it's as a third down pass rusher. It's unique, when you have these opportunities, like, even Wandale, like a lot of people will say that the Giants reached on a lot of draft picks over the last couple of years, and they did. Elerson Smith was a projected 6th round draft pick they took in the 4th round. Wandale was also a projected like 4th round pick they took in the 2nd round. So the reality of it is like these guys were chosen because they have specific skill sets that fit the scheme the Giants are trying to run. I am not sure that Elerson Smith's is a real scheme for Wink Martindale. I like his speed. I think he can be valuable on 3rd downs. And basically this is what he said recently, Elerson. He said, I'm going to make sure I take advantage of every opportunity I have in front of me. If people remember my name or not right now, that's not going to help us win games. I'm going to try to take care of the opportunity I have in front of me. So he kind of just like is trying to take care of his opportunities, which every NFL player is trying to do. So, Wink Martindale did say something interesting about, a smaller guy using bigger guys as leverage. So as we know, Elerson is 260 pounds, 6'6". So he's not like the ideal size, like a lab made outside linebacker, but he does have some decent, he's not like not strong. He just can't overpower offensive tackles, which, not many guys can because they're massive human beings. But Wink Martindale said, I always say there's a good place for a small person. It's behind a big, long person in this league because, it helps everything. It helps your open field tackling, and it helps separating off blocks, and it helps going up to the 50-50 ball. Length does play a big part of it. And we do know that Elerson Smith does have very long wingspan and arms. So there is value there. Just a matter of like figuring out where he needs to play. I think like maybe a stand-up outside linebacker, like maybe not an outside linebacker, like a stand-up kind of hybrid linebacker behind like Leonard Williams or something like that, and just kind of using him or using stunts with him and Leonard Williams could be kind of interesting. I would like to see maybe how that works out. When Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari are off the field, like just for fatigue-related purposes, they're mixing in those rotation guys. Like we've already seen what, excuse me, we've already seen what Ocean Eximitis provides, right? We don't know what Elerson Smith is. And because we've seen Ocean Eximitis as probably a slightly below average pass rusher, we might as well give the reps during a rebuild year to a guy that might have more talent, might have more potential down the road. Because Ocean's, his probably his time with the Giants is done after this season. So why not give Elerson the reps? What is your take on that?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a great idea to give him the reps because, like I mentioned, there's other talent on the roster. And you kind of also mentioned that you said something about, there's a few young guys that the Giants have taken in the middle rounds in the past couple of years who could be seeing the field. And I'll even throw out an alternative option to Elerson Smith, another guy who contributes defensively and on special teams and has actually seen the field, and that's Cam Brown. And Cam Brown is listed as an off-ball linebacker, and he's probably going to play more linebacker than edge rusher, but he does have the ability to do both. He's a bit more of a run-defending edge setter as an edge rusher, but he also has like a lot of just aggression and speed and power. He's kind of one of those guys that doesn't really know it. The way that I look at Cam Brown, he doesn't really know what he's doing in terms of the football technicalities, but he's an athlete who just likes to run into people. And sometimes you really enjoy that if you're a defensive coordinator because you can mold that, And on top of that, not only does he have that ability as an off-ball linebacker / edge rusher, kind of that hybrid role, but he also has that ability as a gunner on special teams. We've seen Cam Brown play some gunner, and it's interesting always when a team uses a linebacker as a gunner because usually you've got like these super fast, speedy wide receivers or cornerbacks who are playing gunner, but every now and then you'll see a linebacker pop up out there because they're just supremely athletic and they're super fast and they can also lay the boom. And I think that's kind of what I see with Cam Brown. He can play as one of those special teams players that just runs down really fast and lays a big hit, but he also has the ability to kind of rush from the inside, rush from the outside. So I like him. And just once again, I like Elerson Smith. And I think that there is some value to be had with him if they can develop it properly. But there's other guys on this roster that I think just have a likelier chance of succeeding. And Cam Brown is one of those guys out of Penn State. But Elerson Smith, again, I'll say something positive about him. I do really like what you were mentioning there, having one of those long arm but skinny guys and then having a big guy behind him. You can kind of see a scenario where you've got maybe he lines up on, over the right tackle, and you've got Blake Martinez kind of lining up on his inside shoulder, and then they run a stunt. And you could see that working out pretty well because he's got the length, so he can kind of, keep the guard at bay, and then that just leaves a one-on-one with Blake Martinez and the tackle. So they can always get creative, and Wink Martindale is going to get creative. He is a very creative defensive mind who's got an awesome array of blitz packages in his defensive scheme. So I'm super excited to see how he utilizes those blitzes and which players he utilizes in those blitzes, and if Elerson Smith is in any of those plans in the upcoming season.
Yeah, man, we can hope. But it's going to be interesting to see how the reps get divvied up this offseason and training camp coming up in a couple weeks. So really excited to see, who emerges, who stands out. Every year there's a couple training camp bodies that really just excel, but then they disappear during the regular season. Lorenzo Carter did that the last couple of years. He was really good in training camp and then kind of disappeared. Hopefully it translates into kind of like the coaching staff can help leverage those performances in training camp and preseason into the regular season where like they can actually make an impact, which has been, tough to come by the last couple of seasons. But I'm excited, my friends. Let us know what your thoughts are about Elerson Smith below. If you think he can make an impact, where you think that impact will be, any ideas, always love to hear your opinions and narratives below in the YouTube comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.